As the sun rose on a battered but hopeful world, Earth began to rebuild. The scars of the conflict would take time to heal, but the triumph over the Empire was a testament to the strength and spirit of humanity. They had fought for their freedom and reclaimed their world, and with that victory, they looked forward to a future of hope and renewal. Humanity's triumph. The destruction of the Empire's new weapon had been a monumental victory for humanity. It had struck a major blow to the Galactic Empire's plans and boosted the morale of the Earth's defenders. But the war was still raging, and the final push to reclaim their world was yet to come. Back on Earth, the atmosphere was charged with a new sense of determination. The news of the successful mission spread quickly, giving hope to people everywhere. In the command center, General Richards and his team were preparing for the next phase of their strategy. "We've dealt the Empire a serious setback," Richards said, addressing his team. "But now we need to capitalize on our victory. We've shown that we can hit them where it hurts. It's time to turn the tide of this war." Colonel Diaz, looking at the updated maps and intelligence reports, nodded. "Our forces are ready. We've managed to rally more troops and resources since the last battle. We can launch a major offensive against the Empire now." The plan was to strike at the heart of the Empire's command structure, to disrupt their ability to coordinate their forces, and to weaken their grip on Earth. It would be a high-risk operation, but it was the best chance they had to force a decisive end to the conflict. As preparations were made, the people of Earth rallied behind their defenders. Support came from all corners of the world, with nations uniting for the common cause. It was a time of great sacrifice and solidarity, as civilians and soldiers alike prepared for the final confrontation. In the command center, General Richards, Colonel Diaz, and the other key leaders gathered for a final briefing. They went over the details of the attack, discussing the roles of various units and the timing of the operation. "Everyone understands their tasks?" Richards asked, looking around at the assembled leaders. "Yes, sir," came the unified response. The day of the offensive arrived. Earth's forces mobilized, launching a coordinated attack against the Empire's key positions. Fighter jets soared through the sky, and ground troops moved with precision, targeting enemy installations and defenses. The Empire's ships, still reeling from the destruction of their new weapon, were caught off guard by the ferocity of the assault. Their response was swift, but they struggled to match the renewed determination and unity of the human forces. In the thick of the battle, General Richards led the charge. His presence on the front lines was a symbol of hope and bravery for his troops. As he commanded his forces, he saw firsthand the courage of the soldiers and the resilience of the people fighting for their home. Colonel Diaz, coordinating the ground operations, worked tirelessly to ensure that every unit was in the right place at the right time. The strategy was paying off. Earth's forces were making significant gains, pushing back the Empire's troops and gaining ground. Despite the Empire's advanced technology, they were not prepared for the sheer willpower and unity of humanity. The battles were fierce, but the tide was turning. The Empire's command structure was in chaos, their coordination faltering as Earth's forces continued their relentless assault. In the midst of the battle, a crucial moment arrived. The Resistance's intelligence had pinpointed the location of the Empire's central command ship. Destroying it would cripple their ability to control their forces and could lead to a swift end to the conflict. A team of elite fighters, including some of the same members who had successfully sabotaged the Empire's weapon, was tasked with the mission. They launched a daring assault on the command ship, fighting their way through the heavily defended vessel. The battle inside the command ship was intense. The team faced numerous obstacles, but their determination never wavered. They planted explosive charges in key areas, and as they made their escape, they triggered the detonations. The command ship erupted in a massive explosion, sending shockwaves through the Empire's fleet. The loss of their central command vessel had a profound impact. The Empire's ships began to retreat, their coordination lost, and their forces in disarray. Back on Earth, the sight of the Empire's ships withdrawing was met with cheers and celebrations. The battle was won, and humanity had triumphed over the seemingly invincible empire. General Richards and his team looked out over the battlefield, exhausted but elated. The war was not entirely over, but the victory was a significant milestone. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could fight back and achieve victory. The battle was far from over, but with each victory, humanity grew stronger and more united. And as long as they had the courage to fight, there was always hope for a brighter future. The fight was far from over, but humanity had proven once again that they would not surrender. They would keep fighting in the shadows, using every resource they had to push back against the Empire's tyranny. The final plan. The survivors in the underground bunker had achieved a significant victory by defending the military base. Yet, the reality of their situation was clear. The Galactic Empire was still a powerful force, and the war was far from over. It was time for a new plan, one that could turn the tide in humanity's favor. In the bunker, General Richards and his top advisors gathered around a large table covered with maps and schematics. The room was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the flickering screens that displayed the latest intelligence on the Empire's movements. "We've bought ourselves some time," Richards said, addressing the group. "But we need to hit back harder. We need a plan that will make a real difference." Colonel Diaz looked at the map, his face serious. "Our previous attempts to strike the Empire's ships directly have failed. Their shields are too strong. We need to find a way to penetrate those defenses." Alex, the young engineer who had been crucial in the resistance efforts, stepped forward. "We've intercepted some data about a new weapon the Empire is developing. It's supposed to be even more powerful than their current arsenal. If we can sabotage this weapon before it's fully operational, it might give us the upper hand." Dr. Miller, who had become an important strategist, nodded. "That's a good lead. But we don't have much time. The Empire will be deploying this new weapon soon." Richards turned to Alex. "Can you pinpoint the location where they're developing this weapon?" Alex nodded. "Yes, based on the data we've gathered, it's being built in a remote facility on one of their moons. It's heavily guarded, but if we can get a team in there, we might be able to destroy the weapon before it's finished." Richards looked around the room, his eyes meeting each of his team members. "This mission will be dangerous. We'll be going into the heart of enemy territory. We need a plan that maximizes our chances of success while minimizing risks." The team worked through the night, devising a detailed plan. They would use a combination of stealth and sabotage to infiltrate the facility. A small, specialized team would travel to the moon using a covered spacecraft, while another group would create a diversion to draw the Empire's attention away from the facility. As the plan took shape, the team prepared for the mission. They equipped themselves with the best gear they could muster, including advanced stealth technology and explosive charges. Each member of the team knew their role and the risks involved, but their determination was unshakable. On the day of the mission, the resistance fighters gathered in the bunker's launch bay. The spacecraft was ready, its hull sleek and dark, designed for stealth. The team, led by Alex and a skilled pilot named Emma, boarded the craft, their faces set with resolve. "Remember," Alex said to the team, "our goal is to get in, destroy the weapon, and get out. We'll have one chance to make this work." Emma nodded, starting the spacecraft's engines. "We're ready. Let's do this." The spacecraft lifted off, its engines barely making a sound as it slipped through Earth's atmosphere. It traveled quickly through space, approaching the Empire's moon. The facility was visible from afar, a sprawling complex surrounded by defensive towers and patrol ships. The team executed the plan with precision. As the diversion team launched a coordinated attack on a nearby Empire base, drawing their attention, Alex and his team sneaked into the facility. They used their stealth technology to avoid detection, moving silently through the corridors. Reaching the core of the facility, they planted explosive charges on the critical systems of the new weapon. The timer was set, and they quickly made their way back to the spacecraft. Just as they were about to leave, Alarms blared throughout the facility. The Empire had detected their presence. The team sprinted to the spacecraft, fighting off a few guards in a tense skirmish. The spacecraft took off as explosions began to shake the facility. The new weapon was destroyed in a massive blast, sending a plume of debris into space. The Empire's moon was now a burning wreck, but the mission had been a success. As they returned to Earth, the team was greeted with cheers from the Resistance fighters. The destruction of the new weapon was a significant blow to the Empire, and it gave humanity a renewed sense of hope. General Richards looked at the team with pride. "You've done it. This is the kind of victory we need to keep pushing forward. The fight isn't over, but today, we've taken a crucial step towards winning this war." As the battle raged on, Earth's cities burned, but humanity's spirit remained unbroken. The Galactic Empire had struck back with terrifying force, but the people of Earth continued to fight, and as long as they fought, there was still hope. Fighting in the shadows. The devastation from the Galactic Empire's attack was immense. Major cities lay in ruins, their once bustling streets now silent and empty. The Empire's overwhelming power had crushed much of Earth's defenses, but humanity was not entirely defeated. Amidst the ashes, a new kind of resistance was taking shape, one that fought in the shadows. In the rubble of what used to be New York City, a group of survivors huddled in an underground bunker. They were not soldiers, but ordinary people, engineers, doctors, and civilians who had managed to escape the initial wave of destruction. Their faces were dirty and tired, but their eyes were full of determination. "Our cities are gone," said a young engineer named Alex, looking around at the group. "But we're still here. We have to keep fighting, even if it's from the shadows." Dr. Miller, a physician who had become a makeshift leader for the group, nodded. "Alex is right. We can't take on the Empire directly, not with the weapons we have left. But we can disrupt their plans. We can be a thorn in their side." The group had managed to salvage some old equipment and weapons from the wreckage. They used what they had to set up a makeshift command center in the bunker. Their goal was to gather intelligence, sabotage the Empire's operations, and support the remaining military forces with whatever they could. "Let's get to work," said Dr. Miller. "We need to find out where the Empire's next attack will be and how we can stop it." Meanwhile, far above Earth, the Galactic Empire's ships hovered silently. The Empire's leaders were confident, believing that their power had broken the back of human resistance. But Commander Vorta knew better. He understood that the humans were resourceful, and their fight was far from over. "They're still out there," Vorta said to Officer Zarin, who stood beside him. "We've had reports of resistance groups, small but persistent. They're trying to make trouble for us." Zarin looked at the screens displaying various parts of the planet. "Shall we increase our patrols? We can eliminate these resistance cells before they become a serious threat." Vorta shook his head. "No, let them think they're making a difference. It's more entertaining to watch them struggle. But keep an eye on them. I don't want any surprises." Back on Earth, the resistance groups were working tirelessly. They had learned to strike quickly and vanish before the Empire's patrols could catch them. They used the remnants of old technology to their advantage, hacking into the Empire's communication networks and gathering crucial information. One night, Alex and his team managed to intercept a transmission that revealed the Empire's plans for their next attack. It was set to hit a small, yet strategically important, military base. If it were destroyed, it would cripple Earth's ability to defend itself further. "This is it," Alex said, showing the transmission to Dr. Miller and the others. "We need to warn the military base and help them prepare." Dr. Miller nodded. "I'll contact the nearest military unit and get them the information. You and the others will need to get to the base and help with the defense." The resistance worked quickly, sending out warnings and preparing for the impending attack. They used guerrilla tactics to create distractions, drawing the Empire's attention away from the base. It was a dangerous and chaotic operation, but it was their chance to make a difference. As the Empire's ships approached their target, the military base was ready. Thanks to the Resistance's warning, the base's defenses were reinforced, and additional troops were in place. The battle was fierce, with the base's forces fighting with everything they had. From their hiding spots, the Resistance fighters watched with bated breath. Their sabotage had succeeded in slowing the Empire's advance, giving the base a fighting chance. The battle raged through the night, but the base held its ground. The Empire's forces, though powerful, were met with fierce resistance. The humans fought back with a desperation born of survival, and for the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope. As dawn broke, the Empire's ships withdrew, their attack having been repelled. The Resistance had made a real impact, and the military base survived the onslaught. Back in the bunker, the survivors celebrated their small victory. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was still hope, and that every act of resistance, no matter how small, could make a difference. The Empire strikes back. The Galactic Empire's ships hung like black shadows above Earth, ominous and still. They had easily blocked the first nuclear strike. Now it was their turn. Inside the command center, General Richards and his team watched in tense silence. The Empire had yet to retaliate, but they knew it was coming. "They're waiting," Colonel Diaz said, glancing at Richards. "Why aren't they attacking yet?" "They want us to feel hopeless," Richards replied, his voice grim. "They're playing mind games, trying to break our spirit before they strike. But we won't give them the satisfaction." Above the planet, Commander Vorta stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at Earth. His eyes were cold, calculating. The humans had tried to fight back, but their attack had failed. Now it was time to show them the true power of the Empire. "Are our weapons ready?" Vorta asked, turning to Officer Zarin. Zarin nodded. "All systems are prepared, Commander. We are ready to fire at your command." Vorta smiled faintly. "Good. Target their major cities. Let them understand the consequences of defiance." At his command, the massive ships of the Empire began to charge their weapons. The energy buildup was visible from Earth, bright lights glowing from the ships like small suns. The people below watched in horror, realizing that the Empire was about to strike back. And this time, it would be far worse than anything they had faced before. In the command center, alarms blared as the computers detected the energy spikes from the Empire's ships. "They're preparing to fire," shouted one of the officers. "It's going to be a full-scale attack." Richard slammed his fist on the table. "Activate all defense systems. Get our air forces in the sky, and tell the ground units to brace for impact. We're not going down without a fight." Across the globe, Earth's military scrambled into action. Anti-aircraft defenses, missile systems, and every available weapon were brought online. Fighter jets and drones took to the skies, ready to engage the enemy, even though the odds were against them. On the ground, soldiers took their positions, preparing for the worst. Seconds later, the first of the Empire's attacks began. Beams of pure energy, each more powerful than anything Earth had ever seen, rained down from the Empire's ships. The first strike hit the heart of Tokyo, leveling entire city blocks in a matter of seconds. Buildings crumbled into dust, and the ground shook with the force of the impact. Next came London, where the energy beams tore through the ancient city like a hot knife through butter. Landmarks that had stood for centuries were vaporized in an instant, leaving nothing but smoking ruins behind. In the United States, Chicago was the next target. The towering skyscrapers that defined the city's skyline fell like dominoes as the beams of destruction tore through them. The air was filled with fire, ash, and the terrified screams of those caught in the attack. But even as city after city fell under the might of the Empire's weapons, humanity did not give up. Earth's military forces fought back with everything they had. Fighter jets swarmed the Empire's ships, launching missiles and firing machine guns. Ground-based anti-aircraft systems sent waves of missiles into the sky, aiming for the enemy's shields. The weapons may have been primitive compared to the Empire's technology, but they were relentless. Explosions rocked the sky as Earth's forces fought desperately to defend their planet. Inside the command center, General Richards watched the screens, his jaw clenched. The destruction was unimaginable, but he refused to give in to despair. "How are our forces holding up?" he asked, his voice tight. "We're losing cities, sir," an officer replied, his voice shaky. "But our air forces are still engaging the enemy. We've managed to slow them down, but it's not enough." Richards nodded grimly. He knew they couldn't hold out forever, not against an enemy as powerful as the Galactic Empire. But Earth wasn't beaten yet. "Keep the pressure on," Richards ordered. "We may not be able to stop them, but we can make them bleed. We need to buy ourselves more time." Meanwhile, on the Empire's flagship, Commander Vorta watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The humans were fighting back, but their resistance was futile. His ships were barely scratched by the counterattacks. "They are brave," Vorta remarked, "but bravery alone will not save them." Officer Zarin looked at the destruction below and nodded. "Shall we finish them, Commander?" Vorta hesitated for a moment, watching as another wave of Earth's fighters charged toward his ships. "No," he said finally. "Let them struggle a little longer. It will make their defeat all the more satisfying." The Empire arrives. It was a calm day on Earth when everything changed. People went about their usual lives, working, traveling, and spending time with family. Nobody expected what was about to happen. High above the planet, something strange appeared in the sky. At first, it looked like a small, dark shape, barely noticeable against the bright blue. But it grew larger and larger, until the entire world noticed. Far beyond the clouds, massive ships began to appear, one by one. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The ships were black and sleek, their size dwarfing even the largest of Earth's cities. Their engines hummed with an unnatural sound, and they moved with a terrifying precision, as if they had full control of space itself. These ships were part of the Galactic Empire, a powerful and advanced civilization that ruled over countless planets. They had come to Earth, and they were not here to make friends. On Earth, chaos broke out. The world's governments were quick to respond. News channels flashed images of the enormous ships hovering above major cities. People were terrified, unsure of what was happening. The governments tried to reach out to the mysterious fleet, but there was no response. It was as if the ships were waiting for something. And then the message came. A voice, cold and commanding, filled the airwaves. It spoke in every language known to man. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that sent shivers down the spine of everyone who heard them. "This is the Galactic Empire. You are now part of our dominion. You will surrender all of your resources to us, and you will pay tribute. If you refuse, you will be destroyed." The message repeated again and again, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Earth had been given an ultimatum. The leaders of every nation scrambled to come up with a plan. Some were frozen with fear. Others were furious at the arrogance of these invaders. But all of them understood one thing. Earth was in serious trouble. In a secure underground bunker, world leaders gathered to discuss their options. The situation was grim. No one knew how powerful the Galactic Empire really was, but judging by the size of their fleet, it was clear they were far more advanced than humanity. Earth had nuclear weapons, but would they be enough to stop a threat this big? The President of the United States, along with other major leaders, looked to their military generals for advice. General Richards, an old but sharp man with years of experience, was one of the first to speak. "We can't just roll over and give them what they want," he said, his voice firm. "If we give them our resources, what's to stop them from taking everything? We'll be left with nothing." "But can we fight them?" asked the President of France, her voice shaking slightly. "Look at the size of their ships. Their technology is far beyond ours." General Richards narrowed his eyes. "We can fight. We have to. If we don't, we're as good as dead anyway. We don't know what they're capable of, but we have to believe that we have a chance. Humanity has always found a way to survive, no matter the odds." The room fell silent. The leaders were torn. Some wanted to negotiate, hoping the Empire would show mercy. Others, like General Richards, believed that surrendering would only lead to more suffering. As the debate continued, the Galactic Empire's fleet remained in place, waiting for Earth's response. The people of the planet watched in fear, wondering what their leaders would decide. Would they bow down to this powerful enemy? Or would humanity fight back, even if it meant risking everything? A bold plan. The Galactic Empire's message echoed in the minds of every world leader. The choice was clear: surrender or be destroyed. But for General Richards, it wasn't that simple. He couldn't shake the feeling that if Earth surrendered, they would lose more than just resources. They would lose their freedom, their identity, and their future. As world leaders continued to argue about what to do, General Richards sat in silence, thinking. He had fought in many wars, but none of them had prepared him for something like this. Humanity was facing an enemy it didn't fully understand, one that came from beyond the stars. And yet, deep down, he knew they had to fight back. "We need a plan," he muttered under his breath, barely loud enough for the others to hear. "What was that, General?" the President of the United States asked, looking at him with tired eyes. The stress of the situation was clear on her face. Richard stood up slowly, his old bones creaking. He looked around the room at the other leaders. Some were scared, others looked defeated. But in their eyes, he saw a flicker of hope. They were waiting for someone to take charge. "We can't surrender," he said, his voice steady and strong. "If we give them what they want, they'll just keep taking. Today, it's our resources. Tomorrow, it's our planet. And after that, we'll be nothing but slaves." The room went quiet. No one dared to interrupt him. "I've been in this game long enough to know one thing," Richards continued. "You don't win a fight by rolling over and showing your belly. You win by hitting back hard. And that's exactly what we're going to do." Some of the leaders exchanged uneasy glances. The Prime Minister of Japan leaned forward, frowning. "You're suggesting we attack? Do you really think we stand a chance against a force like that?" Richards nodded. "We've been preparing for war for decades. Our nuclear weapons may not be as advanced as their technology, but they're powerful enough to send a message. The Galactic Empire sees us as weak, but they have no idea what we're capable of. But if we attack, we could be signing our own death warrant," the Russian president said, his voice grim. "What if they retaliate with something worse?" Richard's eyes hardened. "They're going to attack us no matter what. That's what empires do. They conquer, they take, and they leave nothing behind. Our only chance is to show them that Earth isn't an easy target." The room was silent once more. The leaders knew Richards was right. The Galactic Empire wouldn't stop until they had taken everything. But launching a counterattack against such a powerful enemy was a risk, and they all knew it. The President of the United States broke the silence. "What's your plan, General?" Richards walked to the center of the room, where a holographic map of Earth was displayed. He pointed to several strategic locations. "We'll launch a full-scale nuclear strike against their ships. We hit them fast and hard, before they have a chance to respond. We target their largest ships first, take out their command centers, disrupt their communications. We may not destroy them completely, but we can hurt them enough to make them think twice." "And if it doesn't work?" the Prime Minister of Canada asked quietly. Richards shrugged. "Then we go down fighting." The leaders exchanged glances once again. They knew the risks. They knew the consequences, but in the face of such overwhelming odds, they had little choice. Finally, the President of the United States nodded. "We'll follow your lead, General. Let's show them what humanity is made of." With the decision made, the room erupted into activity. Military officials from around the world began coordinating the strike, and Earth's most powerful weapons were prepared for launch. As General Richards stood by, Watching the preparations unfold, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity was up against an enemy far more advanced than they were, but they weren't backing down. They were going to fight. And win or lose, the Galactic Empire would soon learn one thing: Earth would not go quietly. The Empire's threat. The countdown to the Galactic Empire's deadline ticked away. Earth had only a few hours left to respond. Tension filled the air, not just in the war rooms, but in every home, every street, and every corner of the planet. People waited anxiously, not knowing if they would live to see the next day. On board the largest of the Empire's ships, Commander Vorta watched Earth with cold, calculating eyes. He was confident. The Galactic Empire had crushed countless planets before. Why would Earth be any different? They are primitive, Vorta muttered to himself, observing the planet through the giant viewport of his command ship. They still burn fuel to travel. Their weapons are crude, and their people are divided. His second-in-command, Officer Zarin, stood at attention beside him. "Sir, should we prepare for the final strike?" Vorta shook his head slowly. "Not yet. Let them sweat. Fear makes them weak, and weak creatures are easier to control." Back on Earth, the decision to fight back had already been made. General Richards and his team of military experts had worked through the night, preparing for the nuclear launch. But they knew the Empire wouldn't wait forever. Soon, the Empire would strike, and when they did, it wouldn't be a small attack. It would be devastating. A new message came from the Empire, cutting through all radio signals and communications worldwide. Once again, the cold voice of the Empire echoed in every home, on every screen, in every language. "You have failed to submit," the voice said, emotionless but filled with authority. "You have chosen defiance. We will now demonstrate the price of your rebellion." The message was short, but its meaning was clear. Earth had angered the Empire, and now they were going to pay. Within moments, the Empire's ships began to move. Their sleek, black forms shifted in the sky, taking new positions above major cities. The people below watched in horror, frozen by fear. What kind of attack was coming? Would they even have a chance to defend themselves? In the control room of Earth's main military base, General Richards stood tall, his face grim but determined. "What are we seeing?" he asked, watching the screen as the Empire's ships repositioned. "They're moving into attack formation," one of his officers said, their voice trembling slightly. "They could strike any moment." Richards nodded. "Hold steady. We wait for their first move." But deep down, even Richards felt the weight of the Empire's threat. He had seen the destruction they were capable of. Other planets had fallen before them. Entire civilizations wiped out in a matter of hours. The difference was, Earth wasn't going to go down without a fight. Then, without warning, the Empire's ships fired. A bright, blinding light shot down from one of the massive ships. It wasn't a missile or a bomb. It was a beam of pure energy, something far beyond Earth's technology. The beam sliced through the sky and hit the ground in the center of a major city. The result was instant and horrifying. Buildings crumbled, roads shattered. Everything in the beam's path was vaporized in seconds. The once bustling city was reduced to ashes in the blink of an eye. Millions of lives were lost in the span of a few moments, and the world watched in shock. The Empire's message was clear. Earth was not prepared for the kind of destruction they could unleash. Inside the command center, General Richards clenched his fists. His worst fears were coming true, but he couldn't let panic take over. "Report," he barked. "We've lost contact with New York," one of the officers said quietly, their face pale. It's gone, sir." Richards took a deep breath. The loss was devastating, but this was exactly what he had been preparing for. "Then it's time," he said. "Launch the nukes." Across the world, Earth's military sprang into action. The countdown began as nuclear missiles were prepped for launch. It was a desperate move, but it was the only chance they had left. The Empire had shown its hand, and now Earth would respond with everything it had. As the first nuclear missiles were launched into the sky, Richards watched the screen with grim determination. He knew the odds were against them, but he also knew that humanity had faced impossible challenges before, and this time, they weren't fighting for just one nation or one group of people. They were fighting for the survival of the entire planet. Earth stands together. The news of New York's destruction spread like wildfire. Across the world, people watched in horror as one of Earth's greatest cities was wiped off the map in a single moment. There were no survivors. The message from the Galactic Empire was clear. They had the power to destroy Earth without breaking a sweat. But instead of surrendering, something amazing happened. People from every nation began to come together. Old rivalries were forgotten. Borders no longer mattered. Earth was facing a common enemy, and for the first time in history, humanity was united. In the hours following the attack, leaders from every country held emergency meetings. The decision had already been made. Earth would not give in. They had decided to fight. But to win, they would have to work together like never before. General Richards stood in the command center, his eyes glued to the screens. Reports were flooding in from every corner of the globe. Military forces from every nation were preparing for war. Troops were mobilizing, jets were being fueled, and the most powerful weapons Earth had were being readied for launch. "It's happening," Richards said quietly. He turned to his second-in-command, Colonel Diaz, who stood beside him. "The world is finally standing as one." Diaz nodded, his face grim but determined. "It's about time. If we're going to survive this, we need to put everything we've got into this fight." The two men looked at the map of Earth, now filled with flashing lights representing the movements of military forces across the globe. In Europe, armies were moving into position. In Asia, fleets of ships were preparing to defend the coasts. In North America, missile silos were being activated, and all of them were connected, working under a single command. For the first time in history, Earth had become one united force. They had a single goal: survival. As the preparations continued, messages of solidarity poured in from civilians. People were volunteering to help in any way they could. Engineers offered their skills to help improve defenses. Scientists worked around the clock, trying to develop new weapons or find weaknesses in the Empire's technology. Even ordinary citizens joined in, helping to distribute supplies, care for the wounded, or simply raise morale. In a small town in Italy, a mechanic named Luca gathered a group of his neighbors to help reinforce a local shelter. They weren't soldiers, but they were determined to protect their community. In the streets of Tokyo, people formed long lines to donate blood, knowing that the coming battles would lead to many injuries. And in the vast plains of Africa, farmers were sending their crops to feed the soldiers and civilians who would need it. The world was coming together, not just in words but in action. Meanwhile, in the skies above Earth, the Galactic Empire's ships hovered like silent predators, watching the humans below. Commander Vorta had been monitoring the situation, and what he saw troubled him. The humans were not reacting as expected. They weren't panicking or fleeing in fear. Instead, they were rallying. They were organizing. "They are resisting," Vorta said, his voice cold and hard. Officer Zarin frowned. "It doesn't matter. They are still weak compared to our forces." Vorta's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps, but they are dangerous in ways we did not expect. Their unity gives them strength." Back on Earth, the clock was ticking. The nuclear strike had been launched, and everyone waited to see if it would make a difference. But regardless of the outcome, Earth's leaders knew one thing for sure. They were stronger together than they ever had been apart. General Richards stood before a group of officers from different nations. There were Americans, Russians, Chinese, Indians, Europeans, all gathered in one room, ready to fight as one. "We're going to hit them hard," Richards said, his voice steady. "And we're going to hit them together. It doesn't matter where you're from or what flag you serve under. Today, we fight for Earth." The officers nodded in agreement. In that moment, they weren't divided by politics, history, or old grudges. They were united by a single purpose: protecting their planet from the invaders above. As the final preparations were made, General Richards looked out at the screens one last time. He knew the battle ahead would be brutal. There would be losses. But Earth had something the Galactic Empire didn't understand: an unbreakable spirit. The people of Earth had chosen to fight back, and they would not go quietly. The first strike. The moment had come. Earth's leaders had made their decision, and there was no turning back. The nuclear strike had been launched. From silos across the world, missiles carrying the most destructive weapons known to man shot into the sky, racing toward the massive ships of the Galactic Empire. This was Earth's first strike, its boldest and most dangerous move yet. In command centers around the world, tension filled the air as military officers, scientists, and world leaders watched the screens, tracking the missiles as they sped toward their targets. The countdown had begun. The fate of the planet rested on these few moments. General Richards stood in the heart of the main control room, his eyes locked on the screen in front of him. His hands were clenched behind his back, his face stern but calm. He had fought in wars before, but nothing like this. He knew the risks. He knew that if this attack failed, the Empire would retaliate with a force that could wipe out humanity. But there was no other choice. They had to fight back. "We're about to make history," Colonel Diaz said quietly, standing next to Richards. "Let's just hope it's the kind we survive." Richards replied without looking away from the screen. High above the planet, the Galactic Empire's ships were waiting. They had detected the launch almost immediately. In the command ship, Commander Vorta watched as Earth's missiles approached. "They're launching their primitive weapons," Vorta said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "They really think this will stop us." "They are more foolish than I thought," Officer Zarin added. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." Vorta didn't smile. "Even a primitive weapon can cause damage if you underestimate it. Activate the defense shields." With the push of a button, the massive ships of the Empire shimmered as energy shields surrounded them. These shields were powerful, designed to repel almost any attack. The Empire had conquered countless worlds, and no one had ever broken through their defenses. Vorta was confident this would be no different. Back on Earth, the countdown hit 0. The first of the missiles reached the Empire's ships. The sky above lit up with explosions as the nukes collided with the energy shields. Bright flashes of light filled the air. And for a moment, it seemed like Earth's most powerful weapons had succeeded. But as the light faded, the truth became clear. The shields held. The missiles had exploded on the surface of the shields, sending shockwaves through the sky, but the ships remained untouched. The people of Earth watched in disbelief as their greatest weapons failed to break through the Empire's defenses. It was as if the nukes had been nothing more than fireworks, bright but harmless. General Richards' face tightened as he watched the screen. "Status report," he barked. "Direct hits on the shields, sir," an officer replied. "But no damage to the ships." A heavy silence filled the room. Richards had known this was a possibility, but seeing it happen was a blow to everyone's hopes. The Empire's technology was far more advanced than they had imagined. "They've blocked the attack," Colonel Diaz said, his voice low. Richards nodded grimly. "We're not done yet." Even as the first strike failed, Earth's forces were already preparing for the next move. They had backup plans, more missiles, coordinated airstrikes, and ground defenses. The fight wasn't over, but they now knew just how powerful the Empire's defenses were. On board the Empire's ships, Commander Vorta stood watching the aftermath of the explosions. His lips curled into a thin smile. "As expected," he said. "Their weapons are no match for us." Officer Zarin nodded. "Shall we begin the counterattack?" Vorta hesitated for a moment, looking down at the planet below. "Not yet. Let them feel their failure. Let them understand the futility of their resistance." He turned to his officers. "But prepare our weapons. We will show them the true power of the Galactic Empire soon enough." Back on Earth, General Richards turned to his team. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy," he said, his voice steady. "They're strong, but we're not beaten yet. Keep the pressure on. We'll find a way through those shields." The people of Earth were shaken, but not broken. The first strike had failed, but the fight had only just begun. The Galactic Empire had shown its strength, but humanity had always been known for its resilience. And now, more than ever, they would need every ounce of it. As the world held its breath, the battle for Earth was far from over.